show the record that we are all here except for the mayor. He's out sick today. Business items, number one, the MnDOT 371 Highway Border Safety Study presentation.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, Mr. Acting Mayor. Tonight we have Bob Rogers and representatives from MnDOT here. They're here to present the council with an update on the 371 Corridor Safety Study, which extends from the Mississippi River all the way up to Nisswa. A copy of their presentation is attached for your use and reference. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Thank you all for inviting us back and letting us share a little information. Before I jump into this, just want to do a couple of other quick introductions. So, other folks from MnDOT here: Tom Krishank, the project manager on the corridor study; Jim Holmgren, assistant DE, that's the title correct, and then Steve Voss, the planning director for District 3 as well. So we'll try to get through a number of slides here real quick just to share some information. Then definitely going to have time to answer questions and have a discussion. But at any time during any of these, you got a pressing question, just let's have an ongoing dialogue. That'd be great. So. As Brad kind of indicated, we're here to give just an update on the corridor study, and two quick kind of slides on background here. Just what we're doing is looking at Highway 371 from the river, crossing on the south end of Baxter, all the way up into the city of Nisswa at the signal at County Road 18. So that is our study limits. We've kind of had an ongoing partnership and working group throughout the study. We've been at it for just about a year and a half now. Is what we've done the study process. And folks that have been involved have not only been who you see here from MnDOT, but some of your staff from the city, Nisswa, Crow Wing County, Region 5. So a pretty well-rounded group of professionals to identify existing and future kind of needs and issues that are found throughout the area. So what we started out with, some of our study goals, we've gone through these before with you all, is just, really trying to look at the multimodal needs along the corridor, identifying future concepts and improvements, developing some of the recommendations. And again, we're not doing final design by any means, these are concept level corridor recommendations. And then, also informing, an upcoming interchange project. We had a good meeting today with the team and kind of our coordinating with that effort. And then also that MnDOT has a planned corridor pavement improvement project in 2032, I believe is where that's currently in the program. And where some of these improvements could be incorporated into that. What I don't have as a bullet on here, I guess we have it in the third phase. We did break the study down into 3 phases. And we did start out, at the kickoff of it, of really doing the background assessments and understanding of, really what the needs are. The second phase there was really the alternatives development analysis. And now we're in phase 3. Part of phase 3 is putting together that implementation plan, the timing of when things could happen. And then also something that's kind of come out of the process as an opportunity is MnDOT and, with your assistance, provided a application to a federal program to try to secure some funding for some of these improvements. And so that RAISE grant or BUILD grant, as they changed it last minute on us, the name of the program, went in January. And we're hopeful that program will still continue forth. The federal funds will be awarded, and then maybe we would be one of the successful projects that would be selected that would allow us to advance the implementation of several of the short-term improvements. But we are looking to kind of wrap up our study here in the late spring or early summer with getting our recommendations and the implementation plan and all complete in June at the latest. So some of the things we found, again, real quick, this is a little bit of background, is just, there's a safety problem at a number of locations out here. We looked at kind of 5-year window of crashes. Over 600 crashes have occurred in their study area. Most of them were rear ends, but there are a number of ankle crashes as well, which can be some of those more severe ones. And there are a handful that are approaching some of those kind of above statewide averages, but also those critical rates where, really we need to be looking at a solution sooner rather than later. In terms of mobility or capacity of the roadway, there's anywhere from roughly 13,000 on the very south end of the corridor to upwards of 30,000, and that 30,000 really peaks right in the kind of commercial strip through Baxter. We did also look at kind of forecasting, and we're kind of planning for roughly 0.5% to 2% annual growth. and it just varies on where that's at. And again, working with Josh and some of the other, planning staff and all, where really, growth is expected to be the greatest, and how that would influence those growth rates along the corridor was used in our forecasting efforts. And then just, the last bullet there is, we are starting to see a few areas where, level of service, gets reduced, some of those peak periods, not only the seasonal peaks, but some of the AM and PM peaks as well. But overall, generally, the 4-lane roadway does operate at acceptable levels. So, as I mentioned, we're kind of in phase 3, and the activities that we're kind of doing for engagement with that is we do have some soon to be updated portions of our project website. We will be putting out there kind of one-pagers of many of the concepts that are being proposed up and down the corridor. And then we're going to be disseminating that through kind of some mailings and newsletters, and then also trying to get out at workshops like this one we're holding with you today. We also will be in Crow Wing County at their board on the 18th in the morning, and then later that evening in Nisswa sharing similar information. So, not to say that's the end of our engagement with you all, but it's where we're at in the phase 3 process right now. And so here's just an example of some of those one-pagers. There's 3 of them up here that show up within the city of Baxter limits. And so at Pine Beach and Wise Road, some of the improvements there, Novotny, and Highland Scenic, just to give you a flavor of what's going to be posted to the website soon. So this really is hopefully providing some background information of kind of what we're doing, the existing condition at these locations, and then what the proposed improvement is and what the benefit of that would be to users on the corridor. One thing we wanted to touch on tonight, because not that there's a whole bunch of this planned in the south segment. We did break the corridor, I should mention that, into 3 different segments. We have the south segment that is really the Baxter city limits, the middle segment, which is kind of the county area or the unorganized territory, and then the northern segment, which is really Nisswa. And J-turns, B and U-turns, R-cuts, they kind of are all the same. There's just different terminology used in different parts of the state and country on those. But this is something that we've heard a lot in our engagement of why is MnDOT considering these, and so frequently in some cases. And it is really another option within the toolbox to create some safety improvements while maintaining the mobility and the capacity of the corridor. And just some of the bullets here, I don't need to read through all these, I know you have this in your packet, but it does really, those types of intersection treatments do eliminate some of the highest risk movements. And the highest risk movements are when you're on the side street, you're trying to go straight across the highway, or you're trying to make a left-hand turn onto the highway. It makes you susceptible to those kind of T-bone or right-angle crashes. And a J-turn really eliminates that. It creates more of a deflecting kind of crash if one were to happen, if someone is wanting to get onto the highway, maybe cross over, or to go in a southbound direction. Say you would actually go northbound first, do a U-turn to ultimately go southbound. So if there is a conflict point, it's more of a deflecting type of conflict rather than that right angle conflict. But that's not the only reason. They actually have been shown to really reduce the number of conflict points, and therefore create a safety benefit. There's been national studies out there that have shown that there could be upwards of a plus 40% crash reduction, and anywhere upwards of 70% of those serious injury crashes that are those life-changing ones that are real serious incapacitating injuries or fatality type of crashes. We did a little bit of research on the recently constructed ones in the Brainerd International Raceway area. It's called the BIR area. Those were installed in later 2022, and we looked at 20 months of data, and we found that there were 7 crashes that occurred in the 4 locations where those were implemented, but that was a 54% reduction from previous pre-construction conditions for those 4 intersections. There was 1 fatality that occurred out there with at least the crash report indicated an impaired driver, and then there was also 1 injury crash. Again, these are hopefully getting to be more well known by drivers, and they're understanding how they operate, and hopefully creating a safer condition out there. And there's been over 75, is according to the MnDOT website, that was this information was I think uploaded onto their site earlier in 2024. There's 75 J-turns statewide, and I would say in the next 5 years that number is likely to more than double with how they're being implemented, not just in this region, but statewide. So a little bit of information on J-turns. I know that, there's been some questions about them, how do they work and everything, and I don't have these videos loaded, but there's some really good information out on MnDOT's website, and just, if you kind of Google this and look on YouTube, you can find all kinds of videos that show how you should navigate them, why they create a safety benefit, where their best use is, and, kind of what the cross-street traffic might look like and all that. So I want to encourage you that if you got a lot of questions about, J-turns, or you're hearing questions about J-turns from constituents, there's these resources out there. So, yeah.
So I think we've all been through the J-turns, but did your study say something about a signalized J-turn?
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah.
But that's-
But again, there's again some research that's been done. In Minnesota, it's limited the number of signalized J-turns. We've got one location that I'm aware of, and I think we've done our research on. It's the only one in the state, down in the North Metro area in Anoka County. It's a county road that intersects Highway 65 up near the kind of Ham Lake, East Bethel kind of area in there. That location was constructed.
Is that Viking Drive?
Viking Drive, Viking Boulevard is, yep, exactly. And again, there's some information I think that maybe some of your city staff prepared on that too. They shared some of that with us, of some of the crashes that have occurred there. We've reached out to the county, the assistant county engineer wasn't able to connect with the county engineer, just to ask them what they think about it. It's new. They openly admit some of their drivers initially had some problems with it. They had some accidents that have occurred there. I think they've had 3 fatalities in the years that it was there. A couple of them probably not due to the design. Again, someone that was traveling at a high speed and hit one of the signal poles, a single vehicle crash. Another one was a motorcycle, I believe, pulled out, or was traveling on 65 and a vehicle pulled out in front of him. He wasn't able to stop in time. They've since restricted the right turns on red for the cross streets to eliminate that conflict in that location. But again, what the benefits of some of these are is where there is a signal, it allows you to actually increase the capacity of the main line by allowing more green time. So if you're on Highway 371, let's just use that as an example, the green time that you would be able to go through that signalized intersection on 371 could be extended because you wouldn't have as many signal phases that would be required under a J-turn than what's out there today with left turns and throughs and all of that. So it can provide additional capacity. They again reduce those conflict points, and they eliminate those most serious kind of movements where again we're hopefully eliminating those T-bones and right angle type of crashes. They still maintain access to the local businesses. And again, this is something we heard from the Anoka County folks, is they actually feel that the cross-street traffic, because of the way they can time the signal, they could actually get people through the intersection faster than if there wasn't a signal there. Now, there's going to be certain times of the day when traffic's really light, and you'd be able to go and probably move faster through it. But other times, they were finding they were having huge side street backups because people weren't able to find a gap in traffic and to actually get out and make their left-hand turn or their through movement as well. So, and again, just the last bullet there is, these are types of improvements that, they can be lower cost, they can be faster to implement compared to a higher capital type of improvement, like, maybe an interchange and something of that higher impact improvement. So, again, the little image, we'll get to that. That's at Whitehall, where we had one of these as one of our concepts. We'll get to that a little bit later in the presentation of other things that we've looked at that location. But just again, showing that there's resources out there. Our company has offices in different parts of the country, and we're speaking with some of our engineering staff in kind of the southeast, and they say there's whole corridors. And actually, I changed it from just signalized J-turns to super street intersections, because that's what they call it in other parts of the county. They call it a super street, because they'll have these back to back to back to back. I mean, there'll be whole corridors that are miles long that have no full access. They're all intersections designed like this, and they seem to figure it out. I wouldn't say that the corridor of 371, we'd say that it's the right treatment to do this everywhere. I think there is unique locations where we're considering it as an option. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So in the south segment, we did, and when I say the south segment, again, from the river basically to the Pine Beach Wise location in the city of Baxter, we did look at the number of locations there. You're seeing the intersections. I would say the one that, we haven't really done a lot of design work on is College and Glory to Clearwater in that segment, just because that is falling within what we're calling the interchange influence area. Again, at our meeting today on the interchange, this came up quite a bit of like, oh, what does happen in those locations? And it's really hard to predict what that might, what the effects of an interchange might be, because we don't know exactly what the alternative is and exactly how traffic will divert and everything. I will say that, we're not trying to ignore it or just kick the can down the road. It's just really hard to predict what might happen in the future. So there was talk today of, well, maybe what needs to happen is the interchange gets built in a couple of years, traffic, gets settled after a couple of years, and maybe this segment of the corridor needs to be restudied. And we have to go back and look at, hey, some of the things that were considered for, everywhere from Highland Scenic to Pine Beach and Wise. Does anything need to change there? Is there different alternatives that need to be considered because things are a lot different than what we would have ever predicted? Or, hey, maybe we kind of predicted what they were going to be, and some of these options that we have kind of designed would work. So, we're really looking at other parts of the corridor, doing access management, anywhere where we can restrict some access points that are maybe redundant or not necessary. We look to minimize those and reduce conflicts. And then we also look for opportunities for, things that maybe the local system can further aid in, satisfying some of the local trip needs, as opposed to, people having to get on to 371 for maybe just a half a mile trip. And again, that's very much part of the interchange project. They're looking at some of those options that hopefully will do a better job than others of really, satisfying and helping the local trips, not necessarily have to, interact with some of the regional traffic that's on Highway 371 with the frontage roads and backage roads that are out there today or that are planned for the future. So those are kind of the general locations and alternatives we're looking at as we get into some of these. This is at the north part of the south segment. We have a signalized intersection today at Pine Beach. This was part of the RACE grant application, so this one, if that was successful, would be implemented sooner rather than later. But it's a pretty minor improvement. It changes a couple of access points where hopefully we can close some access to eliminate some of those conflicts again with the businesses. But then putting in offset left turn lanes, and you've already got some of these along the corridor already, where you basically, if you don't have offsets, what ends up happening is those opposing left turn traffic. If you're northbound trying to turn left to go west, or if you're southbound trying to turn left to go east, a lot of times you're looking at the guy's headlights right in front of you. Or if it's a big truck, it's really hard to see around them, right? So creating an offset left creates a better sight line, and you can really see that opposing traffic coming to find your gap. If there is like a flashing yellow arrow, if that was implemented at that location. So that's what's being proposed here. Fairly minor improvements, but again, has some safety benefits to it. The next one's at Novotny, same thing. Really, we're I got a restricted access here, though. This is again kind of a left in, right out situation. So again, the Novotny cross traffic, you can't go all the way across 371, which is the condition today. But here again, we create a better situation where those left turn bays are separated from the opposing direction, so that you can see, get a better sight line, and pick your gap to when to make your movement. So again, this is part of the RACE grant that would be implemented too. At White, I got a couple slides here. We did have 4 options that we looked at. White, the upper left-hand corner is a dual left turn lane on 371. This would just add capacity, really maintains the condition where it's at today, but adds a little bit more left turning capacity. I guess you'll see the red boxes on the south approaches there. That's kind of part of the problem out there today, is that the frontage roads are so closely spaced from the main line that it doesn't provide a lot of storage. Knowing that that's not an easy fix, but if there is an opportunity to create kind of a different connection, whether that's over to the golf course road, or on the west side to the backage road there as well, that would be ideal to kind of sever those frontage roads there to create a better situation with where they tie into White. But the dual left turns, when we did some of our traffic analysis on it, provided a little bit of benefit, but really, maintains the existing condition. And so there is left turning traffic, but it's not to the point where that's the biggest problem at this intersection. The biggest problem with this intersection is, again, some of the side streets are backing up, and just the overall safety condition here is pretty difficult too, so, yeah.
Do you want comments as you go?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Just a comment there on the north side, that isn't our backage road. Backage road is Englewood. That's a
The frontage
residential
road.
street,
Yep, yep.
which, I don't know if you want to haul traffic through a residential neighborhood.
Well, you're right, it's difficult, so, that would be something the city would have to weigh those challenges of that if there's, and again, we're just showing an opportunity to move it. Maybe there's an interim or something in between that could be done. It's, without having taken out all the businesses in that corner, the condition that's there today is creating a failing condition, a really unsafe condition, for where that frontage road connects to White right now.
So if this goes through and things like this happen, is part of the project, your project, making that back connection and buying the land?
No, this would be more, again, those backage road or frontage road opportunities would be based on redevelopment opportunities and be city-driven more than MnDOT-driven. Yeah. The one in the lower right-hand corner is taking that, like we showed earlier, the signalized J-turn option, where you put in a restricted type of median to eliminate through traffic movements on White, as well as any left turns off of White onto 371. So what traffic would need to do if you're northbound and you wanted to go west on White, you'd have to actually go through the intersection and do a U-turn at, I think I got a pointer here. At this location, you would turn around and then be able to get onto White. And similarly, if you were on White, and you want to go through, rather than going straight across as you can today, you'd have to approach the intersection, go northbound, roughly the 500 feet of the turn lane length, and then make the U-turn and go. This is another thing with the one in Anoka County, which they changed a little bit, is they changed the signal phasing here. These three signals that you see here really operate as one signal. And they had to change their signal cycle a little bit so that if the last vehicle that they allowed, say they planned for 5 vehicles being in this queue, they had to make the signal cycle long enough so that all of the vehicles that they planned for would get all the way through all those, because I think they had it too short before is what was happening, and so people were running red lights again, which you never want to have that situation.
Yeah, I didn't realize that that's what you called a signalized J-turn. My daughters live down there on Viking.
Oh, not there.
I've been through that.
Yep. Well, they may have called it a signalized arc cut. I don't know. I mean, there's those different terms for it, but that's what it is. So these are two of the options we had. Another option, the one in the upper left, is called a signalized, and we call it a MUT. It's actually a Michigan U-turn. And the difference here is you allow the through trips to go through, but you continue to have the batteries going. You still have the U-turn, so if you want to make, you're hoping and signing things so that people don't make a left-hand turn here. There's really nothing that restricts them from doing that. That's one of the concerns we have, that it's really a compliance thing. But there are parts of the country, again, where they use these to some pretty high success, where again, you allow the through movements, but you're asking the people to make their left turn by doing a U-turn to only go in the opposite direction. So this one didn't rank real high on our evaluation criteria for some of those reasons of just not sure. It would take a lot of enforcement to make sure people aren't making those lefts. And then you still have the opportunity that people just might do it anyways and create an unsafe condition. So that was one that we kind of, I would say, eliminated from further evaluation, but it was something we considered. In the bottom right corner is a kind of a grade separation. We kind of sketched in a tight diamond. And the only reason we call it a tight diamond is you try to really squeeze those ramps in as close as you possibly can, and to minimize impacts. But An improvement like this, comes with quite a bit of impact itself. Here again, we're showing the need to redo frontage roads that would, be very, challenging and disruptive to some of those businesses in that area. So this is also very, not just high impact, but, high cost. Tight diamond interchanges like this, not considering right-of-way even, are in the tens of millions of dollars typically.
So all four of these are showing us having to do changes to our frontage road system on every one of them,
Changes to what?
to our frontage roads.
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Now, some can be implemented without, but it's still gonna maintain some of those conditions that are out there today. For example,
So,
the mutt here or the J-turn.
If we're having high impacts at Boyer Road, has there been any look at maybe lowering the speed limit to where it is in, say, front of Fleet Farm? I mean, what are we there, like 45, 50?
Yeah,
And as soon
I
as
don't
you-
think speed is the biggest issue
As soon as you
here.
get to Target, it goes to 60, which means people are doing at least 65.
Yeah, and speed limits are one consideration, but again, when we're talking about some of the operations that are occurring here, it's not necessarily based on a speed problem. Some of the crashes that are occurring here, again, there's a lot of rear end crashes, there's angle crashes and all. Some of those can be worse, more severe based on speeds, but, I guess the volume or the frequency is that, we don't think it's a speed issue, but, talking about speed limits is something that I think MnDOT is always, open to hearing about concerns on that, and it was raised in some of our public engagement. Often they do speed studies of what is the safest speed, and I don't want to get into all that. That's not, you've heard of that, probably before.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Can I ask, we had a death at that intersection.
pedestrian, yeah.
Pedestrian, yeah, so
Yeah.
what consideration has been given to what's the safest for pedestrians?
Well, clearly the safest would be, a grade separation. If you could separate people from having to cross the active lanes of 371 and put them on a bridge structure, on a sidewalk or trail, that would be the safest condition. These signalized J-turns, they do provide the opportunity for pedestrians to only have to cross one, and again, you can signal it, or, have the phasing so that they cross, across that median there. It's really hard to see on that design there, but there are some accommodations for pedestrians in that design too. If really in all these, we would be looking at, once you get into more detailed design, what else could be done for pedestrians? Out there today, it's pretty much push button, activated, crosswalk, type of situation, and how can you improve that? It's tough with just the conditions out there today, so you really can't do bump outs to narrow the width that they have to cross, because you've got right turn lanes and everything else, so that it's difficult. It's a challenging pedestrian crossing location. I know we've talked with the city and understand you all have done, a study just to look at, on this section of 371, is there an opportunity to do a grade separation? I know there was a bridge consideration a little bit further to the south here. I think kind of waiting to see what happens, not only with our study, but also with the interchange and what opportunities are a part of that too. So, further consideration once a project moves forward. And again, we didn't have this part of the raise grant because we just knew that there's so much going on with the interchange and influence. And, I'd like to say we've got the perfect solution, but I'd be lying if I said, but I could predict the future on what people are going to do after an interchange gets built, and that's why it's difficult. So we tried to create a series of options, and we tried to, talk about the pros and cons of them. Again, the dual lefts do a little bit and, help with some operations, but really don't solve any of the safety issues. The signalized J-turn, again, it's not perfect. There would still be some operational problems, especially if the frontage roads and some of those couldn't be done at the same time. The MUT, again, similar operations to the signalized J-turn option, but concerns with some of the compliance and enforcement that would be needed with that. And then just the tight diamond. Again, I think everyone would say, long term, that would be a great solution, but how and when that could be implemented is probably not within the planning horizon of what our study was looking at. I guess I won't speak for MinDOT, but I mean, we've had discussions that this is probably not something in the 20 or 30-year plan for MinDOT to consider, just with other things they have in the district. Now, we've talked a lot about this area's been pretty successful in getting some, congressionally delegated, spending opportunities or grants or things like that. That can help advance projects, but even still with interchanges, they take a long time to fund, to develop, and, to work with your community on something like this. And, I think, again, speaking from MinDOT a little bit here, this is a hard one for them because it is so disruptive to the business community, and there would definitely be some, some upset business owners if we start to really show lines on the map that have this level of impact. But that's not to say it's someday not the right solution, so I don't want to say this would never be considered. It's just difficult to say that, hey, this is what we should plan for right here now today.
So this wasn't part of the raise grant, so it's.
Correct. If
So
the
this
25 million, what we asked for in the raise grant, this would not be an improvement that would be part
So
of
this is
part of
the
that. This would be
kind
a
of-
future, more,
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, this is basically as far as this is gonna go for now.
well, again, we're doing an implementation plan. We're trying to throw this maybe into that medium kind of range category for improvements. If the MinDOT traffic engineer was here, Zach would say, well, it might just be another couple of really serious crashes and it could elevate to something being needed sooner. We know there's some problems here, so we don't want to say it just stops here. I think it continues to be monitored. Opportunities continue to be sought, and again, if redevelopment has an opportunity to change something to make improvement, there's probably more likely, incremental steps that happen rather than just one false swoop and boom, we can build an interchange here in 5 years. That's just not realistic. So we kind of skipped the area of what we're calling the interchange influence area, but again, we're probably going to continue to have discussions as we close out the study about what happens with Clearwater and design and College Glory with all of those. But here's another location where we actually did have a, kind of a recommendation, and this dates back to even when the bypass was constructed, is that, long term, again, I think everyone has kind of acknowledged that the plan would be for grade separating this intersection. Now, again, I think the study's going to acknowledge the challenges of that, because again, this is an expensive type of improvement. Currently today, we don't have a safety problem. For the most part, we don't have a mobility problem. There are a couple of 15-minute peaks here and there where there's, some longer queues. And it takes a couple signal cycles maybe to clear all the traffic, and those are mainly focused around the school, the school start and stop times and all that. But overall, again, the operations at this location, according to the analysis, show that they're still meeting acceptable, and they will for many years. We kind of did a sensitivity analysis on when something like this might be driven by some of the land development that's anticipated. And I want to say the year was 2052 or 2053, assuming a certain rate of growth and development in the south part of Baxter. So here again, not to say this can't start planning ahead, but realistically, this is not in our short-term or mid-term improvements right now. We did have drawn up here as if something really got to be a problem in this location where there were a number of right angle crashes or serious crashes. Could this be another location for, something like the J-turn? And we did have something drawn up there. We're not saying we're proposing that. We're saying, is there an interim condition that could be done here? There could be, but that's, something we've documented in our alternatives kind of development analysis. But again, this is the long-term recommended improvement that's been talked about today.
And you've looked at the study that we funded with the
Yep.
county and.
Yep, we used a lot of that traffic
So
information.
if you're serious about this, you own one corner at a time now. Your other 3 legs are going on private property. So it's.
Well, I think we're within, everywhere in here, I think is MinDOT right of way.
Not all of it, no, anything in the, you have a pit, if you will, on the
Northwest corner, up here?
yes. The other, you can see the green coming around, that's basically the property line of that. And then you do own a section on the southwest side, but your ramps into the property, which isn't that just get platted with that recent development back there, Trevor?
No, all four corners are completely reserved for this interchange.
They are.
MnDOT did it with the 371 bypass. The entire 40 acres to the south of the intersection, both east and west, is MnDOT owned. And the northwest corner, the rest of that 40 is. And then you can see where the fence line is in the northeast corner. That fence line's right there, that's all MnDOT right away to the west of that.
Okay.
Did he show you?
Yep. Yeah, I see that now. Good.
No right of way needed for this development.
I didn't see it.
Well, we haven't developed ponds yet, but what I told But no, I mean, we tried to lay this, and then again, this very much looks like the study you all did with the county and the consultant on this. I mean, we didn't really change all that much. What we got into is, again, where can the first intersections be, east and west, to get good spacing and things like that too. But, yeah, I mean, again, the only hang up here is where could you find the money? I mean, and again, it's not a need right now, and that's what makes it difficult, right? You hate to say it, that it sometimes you need a bad condition to ultimately get the attention of, some of those funding agencies and all of that. So, again, a diamond interchange like this, I would guess would go $30-40 million. So they're not cheap to do.
So as far as the grant and what you're working towards implementation, are you taking our comments at this point?
Well, we're taking comments, we want to, I mean, again, we're trying to create a final study report, and, we want to have partners that agree with what's moving forward in that. I mean, ultimately, I don't want to make this something, MnDOT needs to maintain the facility the best they think it needs to be, but definitely having input from the locals, and that's why we've had, staff at all of our meetings and providing input and all that. And again, even if we get to a point where we're looking at delivering a project like this, we know MnDOT can't do it alone. I mean, you need local partners' support, sometimes financially, definitely from a support, to make the case and, to really sell the project and all too. Sure. And that's with everything, and we were here, a month ago or so, asking for a support letter for the grant application.
So my comment is, if you're gonna skip Design Drive and you're gonna skip Glory Road because of the overpass, and then you're not sure how that's gonna affect us to the north, can we not just go ahead and skip changing the Wood Road until we know what's gonna happen with this overpass situation?
Yeah, and I think, again, what we're gonna say in the report is that, this intersection needs to continue to be monitored, and definitely after the interchange is built. Again, we talked about it today, is there a need to come back a couple years, whatever it is, after the interchange is built, and do a separate small area study of 371 that looks at Glory, Design, Clearwater, White-Up, all of those, to say, again, maybe we swung and missed and we didn't have any of the right options here, or maybe we look at some of these and say, yeah, we maybe could implement still some of these, and this would be a good solution based on how traffic has been kind of repatterned after the interchange goes in.
So as part of this grant, which intersections are you implementing immediately?
So in Baxter, it would be just Novotny, the offset lefts, and at Pine Beach, the offset lefts. Those would be the ones. And then as you go north along the corridor, that's where more of the grant money was really targeting. Many J-turns is generally the preferred option on most of those. I won't say all are the final, but there's a lot of restricted access median U-turn options that were part of that grant application. So yeah, the middle segment and the north segment had, we'll call it the majority of the improvements as part of that grant application. Now, again, in 2032, MnDOT has a pavement project that comes through other parts of, again, monitoring things, is any of these improvements remaining in Baxter something that could be part of that? I think that needs to be part of their scoping process when they really dive into that pavement project too. That was it. That was my list. I don't know if we want to dive into any of these more deeply, or if you got questions about other parts of the corridor, I do have the layouts of those too, but that's generally what we have to share. So.
If you have questions, we are running, our council meeting should start in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We delay a little. Anybody has any other questions? I got mine answered during the presentation. Thank you. All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You guys have anything to add? I'm sorry, I did all the talking up here. Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, and again, I think, Tom has offered this before, if there's ever a time you want us to come back. I mean, we've got a few months left in the study that I'm involved with. I mean, obviously, MnDOT's involved with this for all along. Unless these things are still in play here, so, yeah, so we're more than happy to come back and answer questions too. So.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, do we have any